I ran a poll about Steam Machine demand, and I got a result that shows me a very interesting thing. 37% of respondents said that they're buying it even though it's not a hardware upgrade for them. More than a third of interested buyers already have similar or better PCs. They don't need more performance, and yet they're still going to buy it. That number completely changed how I think about the Steam Machine and what it actually is. Why? That's the question I want you to keep in mind. Why would so many of you want to buy the Steam Machine even though you already have a gaming setup that is objectively better? That 37% is not an outlier or the exception. And once you understand the pattern, the Steam Machine stops looking like a bad value PC and starts looking like exactly what Valve has designed it to be. For me personally, the Steam Machine would technically be a small upgrade. My GPU would get about 10 to 15% faster, my CPU around 30 to 50% faster. But that's not why I'm buying it. I'm buying it for the form factor, for SteamOS, for proper living room PC gaming. And I think that's exactly what's happening with that other 37%. They're not gonna buy a PC because they need a better one. They're buying a living room experience. If you've seen any of my other videos, you might have noticed that about around this time, I do a little sponsor break and I ask if you'd like to subscribe so I can continue to do this. This time around, I'm not gonna do that. Or did I? So what does the actual Steam Machine demand data show? Let me break down the numbers for you. 37% said that they're buying it and it's not an upgrade. 26% are buying it and it's an upgrade for them. That's 63% total purchase intent, which is very solid for a new product. Only 6% said it would be an upgrade for them, but they're not buying it. That small number tells us something important about who's not interested. Based on past video comments and other data, I think that group breaks down into 2 or 3 camps. People who play a lot of anti-cheat games that won't run on SteamOS, people who just hate everything for some reason, and then there's a tiny, tiny number of you out there that live in a market that the Steam Machine is unlikely to ever reach. I'm really sorry, and I hope Valve can eventually solve that problem for you too. Then there's the 30% who aren't buying it and don't need an upgrade. That's just people who don't want or need the pre-made living room PC gaming setup or already have something that works great for them. Fair enough. But that 37% who are buying it without needing an upgrade, that's the group telling us what the Steam Machine actually is. Form factor beats raw specs for these buyers. When Valve announced the Steam Machine, a lot of YouTubers and tech journalists immediately started comparing specs to desktop PCs. Well, you could build a better PC for the same price. The GPU isn't top tier. You're paying a premium for the form factor. Wow, only 8 gigabytes of VRAM. It's totally dead on arrival. And yeah, all of that was said. A lot of it is still being said. Just check out the comments section of all the videos that I make if you want to see it. They all miss the point though. The 37% aren't shopping for a gaming PC because it's going to be beefy. They're shopping for a console-sized, living room optimized, SteamOS powered gaming system that doesn't have the gamer look. Those are completely different products, even if the internals are similar. The form factor is so important. Think about the Mac Mini M4. It starts at $599 with less storage than the Steam Machine will have. People buy it because it's compact, well-designed, and runs Mac OS. Nobody with any brains would say to them, well, you could build a PC for better and cheaper, because that's not the point at all. The form factor and software experience are the product. They don't want to buy a machine with those specs. They want the package. That's the same thing here. The Steam Machine's value isn't just GPU plus CPU plus RAM equals gaming. It's the size, the overall design, the fact that it fits in, on, or around your entertainment center, the controller-first interface, how it turns on with your TV, and very quiet operation. You can't get all of those perfectly by just buying parts on Newegg. Not if you don't intend on spending a lot more and tinkering on it like it's your day job. Let's talk about why form factor actually matters for living room gaming. When you're gaming in a living room, you're dealing with constraints that don't exist at a desk. Your PC needs to fit in or near your TV stand. It needs to be quiet because you're sitting on a couch not wearing headphones. And there's probably other people around. And it needs to look good because it's in a visible space and not hidden under a desk. Or your wives or girlfriends would drop kick it into the garbage. And ideally, it needs to integrate with your existing home theater setup and handle 4K. A full-size gaming PC solves close to none of those problems. Even most small form factor PC builds are still too big, too loud, DIY looking for a living room. The Steam Deck proved that people want Valve's hardware design and SteamOS polish on the go. The Steam Machine is very likely going to prove that people want Valve's hardware design and SteamOS polish on their couch. And here's a statistic I recently found out that shocked me. About 20% of Steam Deck users already dock it and play it on a TV. That's a huge number. That's more than 500,000 people who bought a handheld and then immediately thought, I want this experience on my TV too, even if it can barely handle it. The Steam Machine is purpose-built for that, and it's 6 times more powerful than the Steam Deck. I think a lot of people are underestimating how much the SteamOS experience matters. When you boot up a Windows gaming PC in your living room, you're dealing with Windows. You need a keyboard and mouse for half the setup and any subsequent issues. Either that or you're navigating a desktop OS with a controller, which sucks. You're dealing with Windows updates, driver installs, random permissions pop-ups, all the bloat that comes with a general-purpose operating system. You don't even need to get me started on Copilot or OneDrive or Office 365 and that crap they're constantly shoving down our throats like it's going to save our lives. SteamOS just doesn't have that. You turn it on, you're in your game library. You pick a game with a controller, you play. That's it. It's a console experience with a PC game library. And even more, it'll get the best suspend and sleep function of any device I've ever owned. It's even better than the Nintendo Switch for me. For most of my gaming, I don't even have to select the game. I just pick right back up where I left off without any weird controller connection things that Nintendo has, or having to triple hit a button just to unlock it. I already run SteamOS on my Steam Deck, of course, and I found it's genuinely a better experience for gaming than Windows. So much so, I installed Bazite on my gaming PC. No distractions, no nonsense, just games. And because it's built on Linux with Proton, compatibility is very good, especially for older games that Windows now struggles with. Obviously, there are anti-cheat limitations. Some games like Riot's games, Battlefield 6, and others won't support it. But for the vast majority of Steam's library, it just works. On top of that, my system is so easy to set up as a gaming server. It's not even funny because it's just, in the end, Linux. For people who want a living room gaming setup and don't play competitive anti-cheat games, SteamOS is a huge selling point. And I think that's a bigger chunk of the market than people realize. I think it's big enough that those game companies that don't support it are going to have to support it someday. But what about pricing? Some analysts have said that the Steam Machine should be priced at $400 in order to maximize sales. Reese Elliott told Eurogamer that $400 with a controller would sell a couple million units in the first year, and above 500 it risks being seen as an expensive niche PC. But here's what the actual demand data is showing. I also did a poll on pricing. My poll found 66% of respondents are willing to pay $600 to $850, and another 22% are willing to spend less than $600. That's 88% with purchasing intent at a realistic price point. PC Guide ran an informal poll of about 700 people, and 70% said they'd pay $500 to $700, with the most popular bracket being $600 to $699 at nearly 30% of votes. And, importantly, the broader purchase intent number I mentioned earlier, 63%, that's holding steady even though everyone knows the actual price won't be $400. When people say that they would pay $600 to $850, they're not saying, I wish this was cheaper. They're saying, I understand what this is, and here's what I think it's worth. That's fundamentally different from the $400 number analysts are imagining. Look at the Steam Deck comparison. It launched at $399, and it sold 4.1 million units over the next 3 years. Analysts project it'll hit 7.9 million by 2027. So low millions over a few years is actually solid performance for this kind of device. If the Steam Machine does similar numbers at $600 to $700, that's objectively a success and not a failure. And here's the thing analysts are missing. Valve isn't subsidizing the hardware. A Valve developer has been pretty clear on that. It's priced like a PC, not like a subsidized console. So $400 doesn't work economically unless they're selling at a loss, which they've explicitly said they will not do. The analysts are thinking about this like a console competing with PlayStation and Xbox, but it's not. It's a PC in a console form factor for people who want the living room gaming experience without building their own rig or dealing with Windows. What about Steam ecosystem lock-in? Some of you might hear SteamOS and think, oh, like Chrome OS, but for Steam. And it's not locked in like that. One thing I really appreciate about Valve's approach here is that it's a full-on OS. Yeah, it's called the Steam Machine and it runs SteamOS, but you can install other gaming stores. You can even install Windows on it if you want to ruin it. The Epic Game Store works on SteamOS right now. GOG works. I've even gotten Battle.net working. You're not locked into buying games only from Valve. You could get this thing and never buy a Steam game again. Compare that to PlayStation or Xbox where you literally cannot run games from other stores. Steam is dominant because it's better, not because it's locked down. And I think that matters to the 37% who are buying this without needing an upgrade. They're not buying into a walled garden, they're buying a well-designed piece of hardware that happens to run their existing library of games really well. If you've made it this far, you clearly care about this, and I genuinely need your help to keep making videos like this. If you haven't already, subscribing and watching to the end is the single best thing that you can do. It tells YouTube that my content is worth surfacing, which directly enables me to make more of it. And if you want to go further, becoming a member of my channel gives you early access to my videos before they hit the main feed. Plus, it lets me know that people care about this work. Either way, I genuinely appreciate everyone who's stuck around this long. So what's my opinion on demand and pricing? The Steam Machine has strong demand at $600 to $700 among a specific audience. People who want a living room gaming setup, don't want to build their own PC, and value form factor and user experience over the raw power. That analysis forecasts low millions over a few years, which I think is realistic. It tracks like the Steam Deck, 4 million in 3 years, projected 7.9 million by 2027. That's a win for Valve. If it launches with Half-Life 3 like it's leaked that they're aiming to do, it'll sell even more. And the pricing, I think $699 base model, maybe $599 if they really nail down the cost optimization and the RAM market isn't too stupid for them. The Valve developer mentioned that pricing is still uncertain because of component costs fluctuating, especially RAM and storage. But I don't think they're aiming below $600, and based on the poll data, I don't think they need to. The 37% who are buying without needing an upgrade, they're not price sensitive in the same way budget PC builders are. They're paying for convenience, design, and the SteamOS experience. $100 difference between $599 and $699 might shift some demand, but it's not going to kill the product. So why am I buying one even though it's barely an upgrade for me? My current PC is from 2018. The Steam Machine would give me a 10 to 15% bump in GPU performance, like I said. 30-50% better in CPU performance. Is that a meaningful gaming upgrade? No, not really. I could keep using my current rig for another few years, easily. I haven't had to drop any of my settings from high into mediums, and I definitely haven't needed to into the lows, even with this monster of a monitor. But here's what I'm actually buying. A compact, quiet, well-designed living room gaming machine that runs SteamOS, integrates with my TV, supports as many controllers as I need so I can play games with my wife and friends, and it just works without me needing to screw around with Windows. I already have a cheap Windows machine for the rare times I want to play League of Legends. I don't need the Steam Machine to do everything. I need it to do one thing really, really well. Living room PC gaming. And that's what Valve's building. Here's what I hope you take away from this and the whole bottom line of my video. Form factor beats specs every day of the week. That's it. The 37% who are buying it without a hardware upgrade aren't confused, and they're not making a bad purchase decision. They're buying a living room gaming device, not a hardcore PC. Those are very different products with very different value propositions. Analysts who think this needs to be $400 are thinking about it like a console. It's not a console. It's a compact, well-designed, SteamOS-powered PC for people who value convenience and user experience. And we all know how good tech journalists are when it comes to gaming. And based on the poll data and comparable products, $600 to $800 is a totally reasonable price for what it is. Will it sell 50 million units? I doubt it. Will it sell a few million to people who really want this specific product? Absolutely. If you already have a gaming PC and you're wondering, why would I buy this? Then you're probably not the target market. And that's fine. If you want a living room gaming setup and you value form factor, SteamOS, and Valve's hardware quality, this is exactly the device that you've been waiting for. But what do you think? Are you in the 37% buying without an upgrade, or are you skeptical about the value? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.